Hello, colleagues in Australia. My name is Graeme Atherton and I'm Director of NEON, on a National Education Opportunities Network here in the UK. We're a national membership-based organisation supporting universities in their work to drive forward equitable access to higher education in this country. As you know, today is the first World Access to Higher Education Day, or as we like to call it, WAHED. And we're having a major conference on WAHED here in the UK, here in Atherton, in Birmingham. We're working very much with our partners to try and take forward this exciting new concept of a World Access to Higher Education Day. And I'd really like this point to thank our colleagues at the National Equity Centre in Australia for all their support. While we in NEON have really taken forward some of the organisation of WAHED, it's only through collaboration and linking with our partners across the world, and particularly in Australia, that we believe this first WAHED is going to have such a fantastic impact. Before I talk to you a little bit about the conference that we're going to have today in the UK, and what we hope to achieve from the conference, a little bit about how we can work together in the future, I'll tell you a little bit about World Access to Higher Education Day, the concept, and what's happening across the world on the first WAHED on the 28th of November this year. The idea of WAHED is to try and mobilise people across the world engaged in access to higher education work to come together and act as a catalyst for action on a local and international stage. I know from my previous work over in Australia the extent of the challenges that you have in ensuring that access to education is equitable for all groups. I also know the deep policy commitment and the background you've had in this work across the years. And I know that while the policies come and go in terms of its commitment level in Australia, across the world comparatively, both Australia and in the UK, we do have great commitments relatively to addressing inequalities in access to higher education. But this is a truly global challenge. We know what's going on in our respective countries. But the research shows that in 90% of the countries in the world, that's all of them, where we have evidence, there are inequalities in access to higher education by social background. Inequalities in access for those from low-income backgrounds, those from particular ethnic groups, those from rural backgrounds, disabled students, and in particular countries, other students and learners and adults and young people who are marginalised in their societies. However, we also know that across the world the engagement in addressing and tackling these challenges differs. In some countries, we know policymakers are much more engaged and aware of the problem, while in others it doesn't appear to be on their radar. At the same time, as a global problem, it needs to be addressed through global action. Previously, NEON and other colleagues have worked on trying to bring together organisations from across the world, trying to address and talk and collaborate on how we can really innovate in this area. However, sometimes those attempts haven't always been as successful, because bringing together people in one place to look at equitable access to HE is difficult. Most of our time is spent addressing these challenges on a day-to-day basis. So we felt maybe there's a different way of looking at engaging a global conversation in this area. So it came up with the idea of World Access to Education Day. The aim of the day is to act as a catalyst for local, international and global action, to try and start a better global conversation between those of our practitioners, to share their practice in similar areas of work they're involved with, but also to try and act as a way of bringing together voices to influence policymakers. Very excitingly today, we launch our first WAHED report, which is a global survey of the policies that countries are pursuing in the area of equity and access to higher education. This report, which I'm sure you'll be able to see a copy of today, is certainly on our line, on our website now, looks at policies in over 70 different countries and 8 different transnational organisations, such as the OECD and the World Bank, etc. It shows the variability in policy commitment. It shows the variability in targeting, the differences in level of resources and approaches to addressing these problems. On the Warhead website, all of these individual country reports will be available. I know that many of you are actively involved in research in the area of equity and access to higher education. We hope you can use this resource for your work. As we go forward, we'll hope to add more countries to our global equity barometer, and to use this as a lever to try and encourage countries to put further investment both in resources and policy commitment into this area. A little bit now about our conference here today in the UK. We have over 10 different organisations represented in our conference today, including the OECD, the European Commission, our own regulator for higher education, the Office for Students. We have colleagues from Peru, from the United States, and also particularly from Asia, including a colleague speaking from Australia, with the support of the Asia-Europe Foundation. We also have sessions particularly looking at practice and access, both in France, in Scotland, and in Ireland. After the conference, we hope to bring together contributions from the speakers, if we can, to try and capture the conversation and the work that's going on both across the world we feature in our conference today. In terms of going forward, this is the first World Access to Higher Education Day. We have over 30 countries who are delivering activities today, as well as our conferences going on in our respective countries. There's activities going on in Pakistan, with higher education leaders, for instance. Activities going on in Brazil, with both students and higher education staff across one of the largest universities in Brazil. In Colombia, universities are coming together to look at these issues of equity and access, as well as in countries such as Romania, Ireland, Canada, Rwanda, Cameroon, and Malaysia. A truly global spread of interest and engagement. But it's only the first Warhead. As we try and move forward into 2019, we really want to see how we can really strengthen and deepen the collaborations we have across the world for those researching and working in equitable access. And in doing that, we don't actually have all the answers of how those collaborations can go forward. Which is why we really want to welcome contributions from across the world of how Warhead can grow and make an impact. So hopefully through and after your conference today, if you reflect really on what you think global collaborations can add to access to higher education work in local and national settings, please reach out and start a conversation with us. It's only by having those collaborative conversations I believe we can make a difference. I hope that your conference has been a success, and I'm sure it will do. And I really hope as well your National Equity Centre goes from strength to strength into its new year and its new funding period into 2019. We'd like to thank you again as our colleagues in Australia for supporting World Access to Higher Education Day. We hope it's added something to your work. And as we said before, please reach out to us about how we can further this collaboration of your research and your practice and your knowledge and expertise. So by working together, both across our countries and globally, will really make a difference to the students that we all serve.